and welcome back to One Stitch at a Time. This is Heather with Zen Fiber Arts, and we are going to do a knit stitch today. So whether you've tried knitting before or are just tuning in to try something new, we're going to use 2 knitting needles. I just have straight needles and some leftover yarn. I thought this would be a fun color. And we're going to do the garter stitch today. This garter stitch is nice if you're just getting started because you only have to know 1 stitch, the basic knit stitch. So as you're knitting, you'll knit up a square, and then I'll show how to bind off at the top. That will be this side here. So to get started, if you need to learn how to cast on, that's my very first video. I've already knit a couple rows here. So after we cast on, we have all of our stitches on our needle in our left hand. Taking our right-handed needle will go from front to back onto or inside that stitch, wrapping around from left to right and tucking through. So see how that hole is nice and big? I'm tucking through. Then I'm going to push this stitch that I've just knit through off the side of the needle, and that's 1 row up. So again, we're going to go in from left to right, front to back. There's a nice hole here now. Okay. Wrapping our yarn, that's our working tape, that's our tail. Wrapping our working yarn around, we're going to pull and tuck through. Sometimes it helps if you are moving your left needle up and over as you move this under. So you get both your hands working together. Tuck in, wrap around, and pull through that hole. You see how my yarn just fell off? If you're not holding the tension enough behind here, it will slip off the needle. So that's where that tucking motion helps it grab the yarn, tuck under, and pull it off. So again, in, around, tuck under, and push off. In, around, tuck under, push off. So now those stitches are under here. And we'll work all the way to the end. Again, when I cast on, I'm typically casting on about 20 stitches. That creates a nice square. And then I think I'll use all my little squares from this year and make coasters. Maybe I'll make a project with my squares, but here they are. So you'll have bumps on both sides. If you're familiar with what plain knitting looks like, straight knitting will look more something like this. Nice and smooth. The garter stitch is more textured, and that's nice, again, if you're beginning because it's a simple stitch. But it also gives a little stretch. So let's say you're making a head warmer, like an ear warmer, and you want to make this a little thinner, right? Not quite so many stitches across, and you wrap it around your head. It's going to give you a little bit of stretch here. So that's a nice use for the garter stitch. So once you come to the end, so we'll have ended like this. All of our stitches on our right needle. Those needles are just going to switch hands. Here we are on the left side. We'll take our naked needle and we'll start knitting with the same simple knit stitch across the next row. As I said in the introduction video, When I'm knitting my swatches, I just like to make an even square, so I'm not counting the number of rows right now. If you're making, again, something like an ear warmer, sometimes I'll count the number of rows if I'm using a pattern. But if I'm using a simple garter stitch, I just measure it as I go along. And once I have enough to go around without it being too tight, then I'll stop. So here you can see this row has a bump on it, and now this row has a bump on it. So that's going to make that nice stretchy garter stitch. Now what do you do when you come to the end? So here's my finished square, and it'll make a nice coaster. I measure it up, and it's squared off. So how do I finish? How do I get this nice knit side on both? Okay, so we have our bottom. We're again going to switch needles hands, so all our stitches are on the left side. Naked needles on the right. And we're going to do our first stitch as we normally would. Knit. And I'm going to knit the second one. So I have 2 stitches on my right needle and the rest on the left. I'm then going to take my left needle and poke it into the very first stitch from left to right and pull it over top of the second stitch. Okay, so we'll do that again. I'm giving it a little tug just to tighten it up, make it more even. I'm going to knit as I normally would. Then I'm going to, from left to right, go in, pulling it over. See how my right hand, I'm tucking this under so that this stitch doesn't leave. So we're going to tuck it up and over, almost like a backwards stitch. Okay, around, normal stitch, left to right, pulling it up and over. And then here you can see the V's at the top. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to continue that the whole way across. Over, tuck and hiding that stitch, a normal stitch, go into that first stitch and over. So we'll only ever have 2 stitches on the right hand needle as we are binding off this way. And this is a simple knit bind off. So we'll go the whole way across, over, left to right, and pulling it over. The other nice thing about the garter stitch, if you were here yesterday, you saw that my swatch was curled up a little. It needs to be blocked. We'll talk about blocking and how to do that another day. But with the garter stitch, it likes to lay flat on its own. I don't really have to do anything with this. It stays the way that I knit it up. As long as I've kept my tension the same, not knitting too tightly. It's a nice beginner's stitch. Great way to start our year, 1 stitch at a time. So I have just a couple more stitches here. 1, 2, and the very last one. Knit and binding off by pulling that through. This stitch will be able to move up and down, and at this point I would simply cut this end when my swatch is done, and you can sew it into these stitches back and forth with a large needle. So that is our garter stitch swatch. Go ahead and give it a try. Maybe you can make something like a coaster like this, or an ear warmer, making it a little bit smaller widthwise so it can wrap around your head with ease. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.